Do. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us for this edition of the Finding Your Sacred Contribution interview series. I am here with the lovely Christine Miura, who is going to talk about some really amazing things. So thank you so much for being with us, Christine. It's such an honor to have you here.
Thanks for having me and asking me. I feel really honored. So,
Good. So, I'd love to just start with an overview if you can share with us about the work that you're doing in the world.
right. Well, the work that I'm doing is I'm bringing Ayurveda to the forefront of people's consciousness and their ability to grasp it. And the reason that is because the knowledge is 5,000 years old and it's the oldest healthcare system on the planet. But there's this little secret. It's called your doshas, which is your energetic blueprint of how your nervous system works within the body. And by understanding your doshas, you get to understand a lot about yourself from a physiological and a psychological standpoint. It's like it's like everybody's always asking, why am I this way? Why do I show up this way? Well, Ayurveda actually explains that down to the way that you think and how you show up in a room and your preferences of the things you like and how you lead or how you support and how you love. It's like all inside your doshas.
Wow. And so, so here's this like ancient wisdom, right? Which is, like you said, the oldest healthcare system. And then it's actually able to give you this kind of specificity just based on your energy blueprint.
Yeah, so in Chinese and in Ayurveda medicine, you take a person's pulse and it actually tells you how you're designed, what your constitution is. And when you take an Ayurvedic pulse, it can tell you your constitution, any trauma you might have had, any emotional issues that might be up. When you are in the presence of an Ayurvedic doctor who knows pulse diagnostics, they basically can tell everything about you through your pulse, the rhythm of your pulse, and how it's moving, and tell you stuff about yourself that you wouldn't even realize. They can actually tell how spiritual you are by the pulse, and the way they do that is each segment of their finger is sort of segmented, and wherever the rhythm of the pulse feels that gives them information. So when you're doing your constitution, it's 7 layers inside your arm. So you press it all the way down to the bone, and then you can figure out your constitution. And as you lighten it up ever so slightly, so there are 7 layers that they lift up, and each one of those layers on each one of those fingers, depending on how your pulse is vibrating, can tell them if you're in health, if your organs are healthy, or if something is sort of sliding into the conversation of disease, right? Because Ayurveda it's a preventative system. And so when things are sort of out of line, they can identify that. And then through herbs and food and environment, aromatherapy, massage, breathing, all of that, you can bring yourself back into balance instead of slipping into disease.
Wow. So how do you, oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, so like this is your nervous system and this is an organ. Okay, so your nervous system is transmuting information in this gap. Okay, that space. That gap is called your datus. And if a Ayurvedic practitioner can find it right at the datus, you can actually reverse the disease so that it doesn't embed itself into the tissue. And
Oh,
then if you do have it and it gets over here in the tissue, then we start managing disease. That's another conversation to have. You might experience panchakarma, a whole like week of eating Ayurvedic food that is medicinally oriented, which is called khichdi. And the biggest thing is rejuvenation. So after you're doing all this sort of gentle but very powerful work, you're
yeah.
sleeping because sleep is the only thing that can really rejuvenate you.
Wow. So how do you bring this in with your clients?
Well, I don't do all the physiological things like with disease. That you really have to go to a doctor for that. But I can tell your doshas. We can either do that personally if we're in the same space, or you take a test and then I we look at the results of the test, and then I can tell you sort of your blueprint, your energetic blueprint, and how you might be showing up in the world. So
Yeah.
somebody that's leading with vata, they're sort of curious and big visionary, and they're like always looking for something new and fresh. But the downside of vata is that they get really overwhelmed and they get anxious and they're fearful and they worry. And so you always try to be in the highest expression of what your dosha is, but when you understand the lower expression of that, how that shows up, you can then take herbs or spices or aromatherapy or, you know, massage work,
Yeah.
to bring yourself back into harmony, because your doshas are an expression of how nature designed you. And people don't realize that. They think that, oh, I'm just here, I got this personality, I'm going along in my life. And Ayurveda actually explains you as the creature that is on the planet, that is living your life. And the thing that makes you really unique is your breath. Your breath is the part of your personality that comes into this body, but how you're energetically designed is actually explained. Like in marketing, we talk about analytics, right? Well, this is just ancient wisdom analytics used by you in order so that you find more harmony and connection and peace on the planet.
Yeah, I just thinking about that, I love, and everything that you've said that, you're an expression of nature, right? So if you're this Vata type, right, which I know I definitely have a lot of that, that it's not, oh, I can be overwhelmed or I take on too many things. It's like, oh, that's just part of your energetic blueprint. And it's
Yeah,
about learning how to navigate that so
right.
that you can be the fullest you.
Right. Well, and the thing is that how this came to me was I was just so tired, sick and tired of women apologizing
Mm.
for being ambitious. I'm Pitta, so I'm Pitta Kapha. So oh my gosh, you're so ambitious. You're so competitive. Like it's a bad thing. And if you're a man and you're ambitious and competitive, it's like right on, go boy. But as a woman, like been told so many times, like, gosh, if you show up like that in a room with a man, you're going to intimidate them. Like how many women have heard that before?
Yeah.
And somebody who's really caring and loving and compassionate, that's a very Kaphic trait, being Kapha. And how many times have you heard someone saying, oh my gosh, you're so sensitive, just get over yourself?
Yeah.
Like it's a bad thing. It's actually a great thing because Kapha people are very relational. They're the ones that care and put people ahead of themselves because that's how they serve the world, right? And
Yeah.
then we're made to feel like there's something wrong and bad with that. Like I'm just so sick and tired of it. It's like, no, that's how nature designed me. That's how I'm supposed to show up. And you should be glad that I'm that way because I'm kind, loving, and generous. And I make space for you and I hold a place for you to build your ideas and your life around, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's really oh well, actually the other reason that this word came to me was because I used to look at myself in the mirror when I had two kids. They were little, like they were probably 2 and 4, to 1 and 3 something. And I would look at myself in the mirror, and I'm not a 5'10" beautiful, you know, uh, full-bodied woman. I'm 4'10", I'm stout, and I had a barrel chest, and I would always look at myself in the mirror and go, oh my gosh, you're so fat, you're so this, you're so that. And I literally walk away from the mirror feeling bad about myself. And then this one day, my oldest son, he was probably like 2 and a half, and I had a little baby, my baby, on my belly in a front pack. And Sammy, my older one, threw himself on the ground and was crying because he wanted this toy and I wasn't going to get the toy, the terrible twos. And I literally picked him up, put him on my shoulder, carried him out like a sack of potatoes with my baby in my front pack. And I'm 4'10". So I'm walking out of Target, put them in the car. And the next day, I tell my husband the story. And then the next day, I wake up and I look at myself in the mirror and I say, wow, you have a really strong athletic body. oh my gosh, do you know how much baby that you just packed out of the store yesterday? And in that moment, it was just like an epiphany went off, which was, gosh, if every woman that I knew loved their body, what would that mean? That's the first step to self acceptance and self love. And the deeper that we women love ourselves, the deeper we love others. And as being, moms and spouses, wives, it's just so important that we feel comfortable here and love ourselves and see our strengths and speak our radiance and be as brilliant as we can be,
Yeah.
because no one else is going to give that to us. We have to give it to ourselves. And Ayurveda explains that. It explains your body structure. It explains, how fast your mind thinks. It explains why you have kindness inside of you. It explains why you can be, pushy and bossy, like pittas are pushy and bossy. And when they're out of balance, they can be like really mean. And I know a lot of us that are pittas are like, we get feedback from the world that we're that, but we don't understand why. And so that's what your doshas do. They explain why you're wired the way you are and how you show up. And so when stuff comes up, you don't have to beat yourself up or put yourself down. You just get to say, yeah, that's how I'm designed and that's my nature. And that's the way, the universe made me.
Oh, I love that like tangible experience too, right? Of like here you can understand yourself so that you can move toward this love and acceptance. And I often think about this, right? Like we don't look at flowers and say like, oh, that's an imperfect flower, right?
Right.
We're like, oh, look at how cool this is, that it is different, that it is showing up in its own way.
Right.
And that's so true about women and their bodies, and that it is a gateway to holding that space for yourself that really, absolutely, like you said it, no one else can give us. That doesn't matter how much they love us.
Yeah. And, so much of the time, we as women, we have a punitive conversation with ourselves, and we're not good enough. We don't have value. Oh, that contribution, oh, that's not a big deal, or it doesn't matter, or they're apologize. Like I always sort of grab my forehead when I hear women who are really kind, loving, and sweet, and they're just so generous. They have like this just immense mother love, and they apologize for, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, what are you sorry for? That you're just the gift that you were made to be, that you're providing people love, and structure and a place to feel safe in. We have to stop that, because if we don't understand our value and what our contribution is and how powerful we are in the world, in on the planet, to our families, to our community, then we're always going to have this patriarchal conversation that we've been having for eons. And the Western woman is the one who is going to make the huge difference in the world, as the Dalai Lama has said.
Yeah.
So it has to start here with us, right here in this country, in collaboration with sustaining each other, not backbiting or, taking pieces out of each other, but like really holding the beauty of each of us. And for those of us that are wounded, for those of us who have had childhoods that have been horrific, we have to hold the space of love for those people to show up, because in the beginning, we are perfect. In the beginning, all we are is light. That is why we all love little kids. That's why we love babies when they come back. They're the closest thing to God. And that's just what we have to remember, that we are the closest thing to God. We give life, we make life. Our
Yeah.
bodies are vessels for new beings to come through. Like, if women understood the power that making life is a miracle, that my sister is a miracle, and we just hold that space for that honest, we could find so much more magic in the world.
It is amazing, isn't it? How it ripples out, right? That like once
Yeah.
you open your mind to see the world in that way, how you notice more blessings, and so you feel more blessings, and you notice everyone else's, you know, wonder and magic and miracleness. You also get to feel that in yourself.
Right. And it has to start here, because if we don't have it here, we can't we can't share it authentically. We can manufacture it from our intellect and our ego, but love is conjured from the heart. We lead from our heart. Kindness is the currency of life.
Mm.
It is not something to be diminished or, thought of as weak, which I know many people think that. You know, if you want your life to have the flow and ease and grace and peace and harmony, it starts here, and you have to be kind to yourself first. You have to love yourself first. You have to see your own magnificent first. And then you get to share that with everybody else.
Wow. So how did you come to this? What's your journey that has brought you into this deeply meaningful work?
Well, my husband died about 14 years ago, and I was left with my 10 and 8-year-old sons. And the three of us had this journey of, my husband was like a rock, and he was like kind and loving and thoughtful, and he was a great provider. And then the three of us were left. And um, it's just been through that healing of understanding grief, processing grief, understanding that he would want the best for all of us and wanting us to thrive. Um, and just my own journey of how hard I've been on myself, being a recovering, I call myself a recovering pitta, because I am recovering. And then got a more balance, because I was a taskmaster. I was that tiger, or is it a tiger or dragon mom? I forget. But anyway, my boys will tell you when they were growing up, I had really super high expectations, and I demanded a lot. And I thought everybody was like me in the world. Like, of course, yeah, of course I'm getting a lot done. But in retrospect, looking back at that, I realized that I was hard on other people and I was hard on myself. And I think because of his death, I learned deeper lessons, um, brought forth by my whole world basically being obliterated from the standpoint of what was safe and secure to, oh my God, he's gone and I've got to figure this out. And I feel like spirit has always brought me. I've always been a very deeply soulful person, and I've always been in search of self-realization and always connecting the dots and looking at why stuff happened. Um, and I've never looked at life as, um, being a victim to it, meaning that, oh, this happened to me, oh my gosh, this happened to me, but more of, oh, this happened to me, like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean for me? Like, what's the lesson? Let's connect the dots. And I got brought to this work seriously by source. I mean, I knew about Ayurveda when I was 23. I have been on a journey most of my life. Um, and then I met somebody who had told me what my soul's mission was on the planet, and then it was like super huge. Like, oh my gosh, how me? How could that be? And then just having the blessing of meeting amazing teachers, and then being able to work with people and see that the things that I'd gleaned, that I'd learned, that I had been impressed upon me, like they really had impact on others.
Yeah.
And really just wanting a different philosophy about how you connect to yourself, your light, your wisdom. There's always a conversation that I need to step into something, or I need to arrive, or I didn't do this right, or do that. But the truth of it is, the moment you took that very, very, very first breath, you became the light. The truth is that we're all whole. That there's really nothing broken in us, and that we're not wounded. I mean, we are wounded in the sense of what the conditioning from society has been, but we as light beings and people of service, we were all born that way. And it's really unlearning the conditioning to bring us back to our true nature, probably like when we were kids, because
Oh,
that's really where you find joy.
yeah, and where you do feel whole, right?
Yeah,
And you know that your needs matter, and you cry if you're upset about something, and you
yeah,
ask for something if you want it, right? There isn't any
yeah.
of
Like
that.
where did we learn that asking for something was a bad thing? Like that's so much about thinking that the world is scarce.
Yes.
But when you think about the world as being fully abundant and that everything is possible, and sometimes it's a big redirection, and sometimes it's just ever like 1 degree or 2 degrees, and then you're like having a super magical experience.
Yes, right. And I love that, right? That it doesn't have to be, that you go on this week-long, journey of solitude to come out the other side. Like it gets to be this like subtle sometimes shifts
Yeah,
that can absolutely totally transform your perspective.
yeah,
And
and it's here's the thing: when you let go of all the filters and the screens that you put in place to protect yourself, when you let that all go, you might have chaos, but there's beauty in that. And we're taught that we live in a regimented system, and it looks like this, and you have to do it like this in order to get here. Like become so industrialized in the way that we show up and how we perform and the way we relate, that to be organic, to like just how you and I met was just sort of a fluky thing, right? Like, but that's how my life works.
yeah,
Seriously. Like I have met so many amazing people on Facebook just because I made a comment. Like
yeah,
some people don't risk that. Some people won't comment. Some people will overthink it and feel like they don't deserve to do that, or they're afraid, or they're scared. It's like if you just trust, you're just trusting that the world is trusting and full and abundant and loving. I can't even tell you, like my life is fairly magical most of the time. I meet amazing people, I have amazing conversations, and I believe that's true and possible for everyone.
yes. I absolutely concur. And I love, that sense too, right? That even today and what we're talking about has flowed, right? Organically, and that it wasn't scripted. It just has all the things that have come out that I hope everyone who's listening to, it's what you needed to hear today.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Christine, will you tell us, how do people get a hold of you? How do they work with you? Is there anything that's coming down the pipeline that you want to share?
Yeah, well, a lot of people in my community have really been asking about how to deepen their intuition, and how to have a stronger access to their light, and their conversation about their value and their contribution on the planet. So that's my next program. It's going to be a 3-month program, a group probably, because I think that we learn really well in groups. Um, and we're going to talk about all those fallacies that we have, the stories we tell ourselves that we aren't the light, that we aren't of service, and sort of break those open, because it's time. As light workers, we all need to come forward, and we need to join our hands and be the light and the strength for others so that they can have the experience too. So I'm hoping to work with all of you who have said to me, how do I do that? And the thing is you're doing it already. You just need to understand the somatic um, feelings of what that feels like when you're in that space, and how to bring it on consciously. So
Yeah.
that's what's up with that. And people can get a hold of me on Facebook at Christine Miura, and it's Miura. I think I'm the only one on here. Um, and you can send me a private message, or you can get me at christinemira at gmail.com. That's my email. And someday I may have a website.
And it's meant to be. And was there also a podcast?
Oh, right, right. Yeah. So there's a podcast coming out, and it's going to be Intuition First. And
Hmm.
we're going to talk about all those delightful things that we'll be learning about. But and we'll also, I should say, not but, and I will have guests on that are people who have lived in the healing space of sound and energy and frequency and clairvoyance and um, mediumship. So yeah,
Thank you.
it'll be out It'll be out. Just give me a few weeks.
Oh, lovely. Well, definitely when that does go, post it in here for the group, so that we're all able to keep abreast of what you're doing. And for anyone who has any questions, put them in the comments, and Christine can pop in and share, her feedback or ways to get a hold of her in there. I just thank you so much for being here and for sharing not just this, intellectual wisdom, but just your presence.
Oh,
I think
thank you.
energy in this space is so welcome and such an honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Namaste. Take
Namaste.
care.
Bye.
Bye.